Hello and welcome. The title of the message is The Vine and the Branches. But let's begin by affirming together our opening statement. There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God. And now I invite you just to take a deep breath, holding it for a short time and then releasing, relaxing into this moment. And so it is. So the vine and the branches. I'd like to begin by telling you a very short joke. There was a boy who wanted to buy a tomato, but he only had about a few cents in his pocket. So he went up to the farmer and he asked the farmer, how much for a red, a luscious and ripe tomato? And the farmer said, well, that would be 35 cents. And the boy thought to himself, well, I just don't have that kind of money. And so he began to walk down the row of tomatoes. And he came to this one particular tomato, and it was green, but it was attached to the vine. And he said to the farmer, how much for this tomato? The farmer just kind of grinned, smiling to himself. And he said, that tomato's only 3 cents. And the boy thought to himself, and then he said, that's great. And he gave the farmer 3 cents. And then he began to scurry off. He said, hold on to it. I'll be back in about a week to get it. So you see, this young man knew that if that tomato that was unripe stayed attached to that vine, that in a week it would ripen fully into a red and luscious tomato. If you'll think back to the series of messages that I did during Lent on the Lord's Prayer, there was one where we talked about not entering into evil. And that word evil is more properly translated from the Aramaic into the word unripe. Like that green tomato that young man found on the vine and purchased for 3 cents, knowing that if it had stayed attached to the vine, that it would ripen. When we are fully ripe, we are also attached to the vine. It is that attachment to the vine that allows us the life energy, the spirit, to become fully ripened. Jesus talked about this. In the Gospel according to John, in chapter 15, I'd like to read verse number 5 for you from the Lamsa translation. I am the vine, and you are the branches. He who remains with me and I with him will bear abundant fruit, for without me you can do nothing. In the Aramaic, that word that's translated as I am is simply ina na. And its meaning is not I am. Not in the sense of I exist. Ina is the word in Aramaic for I. Ina na is I. And it's been translated as I am, consistently. And it appears many times in the Gospel according to John. But the reason they did that is because it's hard to imagine from a Greek or a Western point of view what it means to be I. I. The branches. It doesn't really make sense to our way of thinking. But let me break it down a little bit. What does it mean to say I, the vine and the branches? In the Near Eastern sense of who we are, there are basically two parts to us that are both I. There is our napsha. Our napsha is that part of us that is thinking in this three-dimensional space in time. What we normally think of as reality. It is a sense of who I am. It is a sense of my individuality. It is also a sense of my separateness. That other I, from I, is in Aramaic ruah. Think about how that breath sounds when you go napsha. There is a closing off and then a releasing. In ruah, it's very open, flowing. Ruah is that spirit, the breath that connects us to all that breathes. Allah, God. Ruah is that which is behind napsha. That's what gives it life. And so I is when our little self, our sense of individuality, our napsha, is in alignment with realizing, remembering its connection to ruah, spirit in us. This is the vine. This is our source of all of that energy, all of that life that is necessary for us to fully ripen, to go from the green tomato that's only 3 cents into a red, luscious, ripened fruit that the farmer said was 35 cents. Fully ripened. Realizing our potential as a human being. This is what Jesus was teaching us throughout the Gospels. How we can come into this flow of life and realize our fully ripened self. How our napsha can be in alignment and harmony with our ruah. They are both I. It's not that we have 2 selves. We have only one self. But it's a different sense of ourself when we are thinking of ourselves as separate. When we are thinking of ourselves as only being that what's around us, that what we can see and touch with our senses. That exists in a linear time. We are in our napsha. But when we remember that's not all we are, when we remember that behind it is this ruah, life energy coming directly to us and through us from the source of all life energy, that is spirit, that is God, Allah. Now we are in connection with the vine. I've been reading a book by an Aramaic scholar named Neil Douglas Klotz. This is the book. Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus. And he's written many books, and I get something from them all. This is his newest publication, and I think he's really matured so much in his way of getting into the depths of the Aramaic that Jesus spoke, and the Aramaic language and culture that Jesus taught from. And I'd like to share with you now the translation that he gives of the Aramaic words that are normally translated, very much like what I read from the Lamsa translation. So in the King James Version it reads, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. And here is how Neil Douglas Klotz translates the Aramaic words that the King James Version has translated as I just read it. He says we can hear this whole saying like this. I is the vine, rooted, giving, opening to life, the outflow of sacred creation. You are the branches connected, receiving, absorbing life. The natural receivers and channels for that flow. Pursuing the self's goals, connecting self to the only self with a capital S, gives life. Entering the depth of relationship, connecting I to you, passes it on. Realizing I am grows the vine of interiority. Actualizing you are creates the branches of communion. As we make this connection, we are receiving from I, that capital S self, back to our Napsha. And that now is in us and ready to be shared with the world. Ready to be shared with the world. We are ready to share this life force, this spirit, this breath, coming to us from God and through us back out to everyone we meet. And it's very easy to do. We don't even need words. When we are in this presence, when we are in this flow, remembering our connection, all we need to do to share this connection with everyone we meet is to see that same connection in them from our presence, from our connection with Napsha and Ruah within ourself. This energy shift from making this connection radiates from us out into the world, and it touches those we meet. And we can't help it. It just is. And that is how we are the vine and the branches. That is how we become fully ripe in our connection to the branches, and then our connection as a vine, as a branch to the vine. Let me say that again. And when we make that connection, now we are ready to share it as fully ripened fruit. I thank you for listening. And my prayer is that something from this message will touch a place in your heart and allow you to make that connection. I, which is the vine, so that you may receive you, the branch, so that you are ready to share this life energy of a fully ripened tomato with everyone you meet. Let's close by affirming together our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Thank you.